Hey everyone, it's Stefanie Garcia from voiceofdream.com. Today I've got Tawn Williams with me. She's from Tawn with Love, right?
Yes.
Yeah, from tawnwithlove.com. And this is the first episode of the Art of Becoming series. I'm really, really excited to be doing this series because I believe that we are all on a journey, on a path towards becoming who we're meant to be in this world. And sometimes that path can seem uncertain. And because it's such a new path, I think we are all in this kind of new paradigm shift where we get to blaze our own trail in this world, and we're not necessarily needing to follow anybody else's path. And that's where it feels a little bit uncomfortable. I know that that's a journey that I've been on for the last couple of years, and I know the thing that made me feel, that's given me a lot of comfort on this journey, is talking to other people as they are also on their own journey and their own path. Now, I've followed Tawn for years on Instagram, and I've seen her try so many different things that even though she may have felt like it was messy at times when she was putting it out there into the world, what I felt was it was very inspiring. For years, I've always felt like she's very, very authentic. And so what I wanted to do is, she started her brand new website, and I wanted to talk to her about her process and her journey. In this very first episode, I really just want to talk about beginnings. So this is just going to be a free flow conversation between us, and hopefully you guys can pick up any kind of insights that you feel like you need on your own journey. So welcome, Tawn. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really, really well. First of all, I am so honored and flattered that you even reached out to me and to help and just be a part of this project for you and encourage your journey. And you encouraged me the first time that we spoke. Yeah. Really, really great. So I'm excited to see what comes of this, and then just helping you in your beginning too. So
thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Part of of starting out in a journey is also accepting the fact that it is imperfect. Mm-hmm. And I think so many times we look on social media and we look around ourselves and we compare our path to other people's paths, and we think, you think that it doesn't feel good to be messy. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really important that we all just admit the fact that we're human and that the process is messy. What do you think about that?
It's incredibly messy. I think that if we're ever in a space where we're not creating a mess when we're finding out who we are, you have to kind of wonder if you're really finding out who you are.
True.
And that's one of the spaces that I've always been in. And I think a lot about how many things I've started. And it's all about the mindset, really. I think anytime that I've had an opportunity to do something new, I've sort of just said, okay, I'm going to try it. And then if I don't like it, I'll place it where it is. And if I do like it, I'll kind of delve into it and see what it can teach me. And so one mindset would be that I just do way too many things. I'm constantly running. I'm constantly doing things. Another mindset could be that I don't finish things that I start. But my mindset really is doing what feels really good to me at the time. And then when that feeling sort of phases out or even elevates into a new feeling, that's where I go. So for me, it's being authentic to myself and then just seeing what's sort of revealed to me. So it's that whole idea of messy is subjective, right? But it's also really, really, really necessary in discovering who you are. I think if somebody told me 4 years ago exactly what I was going to be doing or all of the different things that I would do, I would have been like, no.
You're right? You're totally lying to me.
Yeah, you're lying.
Right, yeah.
There's too much stuff. There's no way I'm going to get any of that stuff done.
Yeah.
No way. Plus, I don't think I would like it as much. I mean, part of the fun and doing all of these different things is seeing what you really like. Mm-hmm. And I think I've always sort of felt like I didn't really know what I really like to do. Now, there's always a subconscious thing that you kind of go, okay, that's kind of there. But I didn't really know, and it was constantly trying to just get it to reveal itself to me. And so, yeah, beginnings are messy. They should be to a point, right? But I think if you're running the same course, you should probably reevaluate. I push that a lot.
Yeah, if you're coloring within the lines, are you really creating the kind of unique part of it that you're wanting to do? I say messy because I don't, it's messy maybe be the word, or unpolished. I think if you look around, everybody has this polished image of, and you really have to look and go, okay, where are they actually at? Are you just where I'm at, or are you acting as if you're further out there in a place which you're not really at?
Yeah.
So, I think we need to let go of this idea of trying to polish it up. And it's way more authentic. But when you were talking about exploring, that's absolutely perfect. That's another thing I want to talk about today with you, is that that path of exploration.
Mm-hmm.
Because with your website, you're kind of exploring something new. You've written on your blog for a while, but then you kind of resisted at the beginning. Last time we talked about even putting blogs out there because you were thinking, I don't know if I have something to say. I don't know who would read it. And I feel like in my heart I had to encourage you to go for it and just find your way with it, because part of the process, what you have to give as you're going through this process, is valuable to someone.
Yes, and I'm so thankful for that, Stefanie. I really am. I think that I think I'm trying to find the right form of words that I want to, like, so my blog was a part of, just like you said, that it was almost like an insecurity, even though I knew that I really liked to write. And so in being, I guess I want to stay with, I know you want to, like, we want to talk about being imperfect, because that is really, is really important, and being authentic. I want to like address what you said before I forget, because I lose track.
Go for it.
All the time.
I do the same.
Yeah. So keep me on track. So
well, good luck, because I try to keep myself on track.
Yeah, I get all of my thoughts and I'm like, wait, what were we even talking
about? Right? Same way.
But when people polish things on Instagram, I think for me, there is a lot of pressure to do that. There is a lot of pressure. Social media in general is very cut and paste. You can choose anything. I found myself going, okay, like, my photos aren't good enough. Like, what am I even really talking about? Which is what I shared with you. Mm-hmm. Is anybody even listening to me? Like, when I'm talking about things and sharing my feelings, like, I feel like I'm talking to the wall.
Yeah.
That happens a lot. And I think when I like peel back a lot of the layers of when people post things, if their content below it, if they don't take the time to comment, for me, I feel like I discount it a little bit. And don't share that with everyone, but it's very, very true. Because if you have a good picture, I'll give you an example. Okay. I'll give you a really good example. I'm going to thank Anne for bringing it to my attention. So a good example is this girl that I know, and I'm not going to use her name because I know her personally.
We're not going to call people out over here.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that, because I wish her like the very best, and I say this with the most love. But she is a model, and she also happens to be like a godly woman, and I think that's great. She's gorgeous. She's gorgeous, and she's always talking about like God, and in her post, you know, she'll write a little something about it, and I always thought that was kind of odd. It was just really surface level. Okay, so I meet her in person, and the entire time, almost the entire time, she was taking pictures. And I thought, okay, this was the second time that I experienced someone who was talking a lot, like in their social media, about God and spirits and like all these really spiritual things. And then when I got to meet them face to face, I realized that all of that was magnified for social media so that people would follow them, so that they would listen to them. But it was interesting enough that in the time that I spent with those people, not one time did they mention God or spirituality or anything like that. And for me, it's quite the opposite. I will have like a picture that I think is good. Okay, it's good enough, but the message is really, really, really what I want to focus on. So it's, does this picture support the message, right? Instead of does, you know, this message, you know, or does the picture, you know, just the other way around, but not as great, I guess. Yeah. But it's always about that for me. And then when I get in front of someone, that's usually what I'm talking about. I'm like, where is your heart? Like, what are you doing? Absolutely. What do you love? And so I think we do get caught in, even myself sometimes, when I see people get a ton of followers or like all of these things happen, I'm really, really curious as to why that would be and how I can get there and how these things kind of take place. But I think in going back to my blog and just like you really encouraged me to just do it. You know, we had this conversation about like, okay, you're waiting for all of these things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And like the worst case scenario, like nobody goes to my blog or nobody goes to my website and it's still out there. But best case scenario, people do. And it's available and it's ready and it's for someone who needs to hear it.
Right.
So I think in doing things like that, it's like when you simply move out of love, when you move an emotion that is just with your heart space being in the right place with the right motivation, we need to understand that the universe sort of aligns those things so that the people that need to hear them will, and that we really don't have to do too much to facilitate that. I mean, case in point here. I mean, this is like the perfect example. So I encourage people to just get away from that if they're starting something new, because comparison is the thief of joy. And we all know that, and we all hear it, but we don't practice it. And when we compare ourselves to others, we simply just do ourselves a disservice from staying the path and letting the universe sort of align with our purpose. So it's an interesting thing to start something and then to start something that you actually love. Yeah. I've noticed that the difference is like night and day.
Such a vulnerable place too.
It's almost harder. It's exactly it's almost harder.
Yeah.
Because you feel like you're doing a lot of homework for yourself. Mm-hmm. Because you want to be, for me, it's in that space of, instead of setting up what I think people want to hear or how I can help them, like I want to help people and I want to see them grow and I want to, you know, mentor and do all these things. It's what I want to do. But I can't do that if my heart and I'm not spending the time and doing the homework to heal myself. So the teacher can't teach the student without having learned the lesson first.
Absolutely.
So that is really, really, really hard, challenging thing to do. So I find that I don't really even have time to be on social media sometimes because I'm in my space learning and doing, and there's so many things in the works for me right now that I'm like, I forget to post it sometimes. And if 3 people like it, what I'm working on is going to be so much better for people's soul and their hearts and their minds that I'm like, I don't care if nobody likes it. If 3 people do and they actually evolve and grow and then help other people do it, I'm good, you know? Yeah. And that's the purpose, you know?
Oh, absolutely. They're so good. This is so good. I mean, case in point on my own perspective with this, because what you're talking about is just so perfect because when talking about sometimes the idea of trying to be perfect or do things a certain way because of what you're watching everybody else doing, sometimes that's so intimidating that sometimes you just have the fear of even getting started.
Yeah.
How many times do we look and we post something on Instagram and go, oh, that doesn't look like this person. It doesn't look like this person's polished end result. So maybe I shouldn't post anything. Maybe I should stop posting. And I think that is, if we listen to that voice, how much is missing? How much do we not give to the world through ourselves by listening to that voice? You know, and I think also, it's such a disservice. We all have something to give. And I think what we're doing is, if it doesn't look like it comes in if we're not able to present it in the way that we want to present it right away, sometimes we feel like, okay, maybe we should just quit because it's like we're trying to get from 0 to 100, you know, to point B without even going through the process of A and a half, A and 3/4, you know, that whole thing. So, yeah. And now the other thing that you were mentioning that I thought was really great to talk about is sometimes also when we're putting something on, let's say, Instagram or your blog or whatever, and nobody comments. That insecure feeling of just, okay, I just revealed something deep to me. And it felt really vulnerable, but now I'm not getting any validation. Nobody's saying that they like it. And you're wondering, you present it to crickets. Yeah. That's the other thing. So I think let's talk about the fact that how important it is to start, even though it may not be getting the response that we want or the validation right away.
Starting is critical because I think starting is the acknowledgement that you have something that other people need or want. So it's important, not only for, and I'm like, I'm doing this whole thing on like affirmations and self-dialogue. And I think not only for yourself is it to say, this is valuable. It's even for you to hear it in your subconscious does something. It moves. And the power of the words that you tell yourself, that you write on paper, that you think are so powerful. They help manifest and pull and bring things in, that even when you begin is so important, because it's acknowledging this is good about me. And so on so many different levels, it's critical. I think when you're starting and people don't comment, and I've had the run of the mill, a lot of people comment, nobody comment. I know for the most part, people don't really comment. And that's okay. But before it was not okay, because really is frustrating.
Yeah.
But you know what I've noticed, Stefanie, is that when people do comment, and this is nothing, I'm not trying to be slight anyone or anything or be negative at all. That's not what it is. But I've also really noticed that when somebody has like a ton of followers, okay, just a ton. I have a really good friend who has like 250,000. It's crazy. When they have that many followers and you like go and read the comments, they're really like surface level.
Oh yeah.
And so I think when people like you and I who really want engagement, and they want to be talked to, acknowledged, or you know what I mean, like get something going.
Right.
That's kind of, even if they did comment, would it feel satisfactory to you?
Yeah. Yeah. See, yeah.
Like, oh, I like your hair today. And you're like, okay, we were really talking about aligning.
Yeah. It's like I've put like my heart in, I try to only post either whether it's on my blog or on Instagram with intention. And sometimes there's moments where I'm really putting my heart into a post, and then it's kind of disheartening when you get a comment like, nice post, thanks for sharing. And you're going, did you actually really read that? You know, yeah. But I think for us, when we're wanting actual engagement, I think there's a walk in faith you have to go through. Yeah. You really do have to go there's a walk in faith of really owning your value. Whether or not you get acknowledgement from anybody else, you've got to own what you have. You have part of the journey, and the art of becoming has to do with going through the unknown, going through that void, exploring, and trusting that you're going to eventually get there. But also having the faith and the and relaxing in the fact that it's going to take as long as it's going to take. That we don't have that timetable, and we have to be okay with that. And sometimes when you're changing things and switching things, that when everybody else is used to doing things one way, and you come in and you do something that's out of the box and different, I think you have to accept the fact that that's not always going to be received, and sometimes it's going to fly right over people's heads. But that doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong, and it doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't valuable, and it doesn't mean that what you're doing you shouldn't be putting out there. There is no perfect time to start, and just like right now with this series here, I maybe don't have the best equipment, may not have the best camera. I'm doing all the computer, and I might have problems with how it looks. But I think the most important thing is, if I waited for that day for things to be perfect, for that condition to be perfect, well, then we wouldn't be having this conversation that maybe somebody needs to hear today. Right. You know, so I think it's your message is way more important than your message. Sometimes. I would agree.
I think that we wait for the perfect state, and that's just not how it works. It's just not how it works. And it's funny because in my learning, so last time I talked to you, I was just starting the blog, and we talked a little bit about like mediumship and going through that. And then I'm starting Reiki training, and I did like this healing exercise for like internal dialogues and past fears that I had and stuff like that. And it's been really, really, really interesting to see how much perfection I placed on myself to prepare myself to speak to other people. And I think when you do that, you lose the authenticity. You know,
Yeah.
I can't expect someone to come to me for mentoring or teaching if I can't be authentic, you know. And
That's true.
part of doing that is just going, okay, like I'm just really imperfect. I'm just really, really imperfect in everything that I'm doing right now because I just don't know what it is.
Right.
And when people ask me about like my blog or like what I'm doing and what I'm writing in this book, I'm like, I don't know. That's my answer. Like, you know what? I honestly don't even know. I'm just putting it out there day by day. It feels like something different. I just started designing t-shirts and like things like that to go with some of the blog posts because I wanted to have it and like as a visual reminder.
Yeah.
So I started doing that, and that's an element I'm going to add in. I don't even have a desire to really do that, but it was something that I felt like I wanted to do and make it available to people. So in that process though, and to totally talk to your point about being imperfect and then starting and then having a sense of beginning, I think that I've sort of just discovered that the more we try to control everything, the more control that we think that we have, the less we actually do have. And the more you relinquish that control, the need to control, the mindset of like, maybe if I figure everything out ahead of time, I can predict the results. The more that we actually let go of that, the more control we have. The more we can control how we feel about things, what we choose to do. I do things because it feels good to me, not because I think that I should. So when I'm doing things because it feels good, because I feel led, then those things now, I've now controlled what I do, how I do it, and maybe not how it's received, but the outcome and how I feel. So I relinquish a lot of that and just allow it to be what it is in its free intention. So I think that there's a lot of people don't do that because they want to control the outcome. They don't want to feel like they fail. They don't want to feel like they've been let down. They don't want to feel rejected. They don't want to feel like nobody cares, you know? So all of these things are they're fear-based notions. They're fear-based movement that actually stops you from doing what it is that you need to do. But when you let go of that and you're like, okay, today I'm going to choose to do this one thing that feels good to me. That one thing could be the thing that just flourishes because it was the one thing that you needed to do today, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah, you have to give yourself that space to figure that out. But you know, I will, when you were talking about if people ask what you do and then you say I don't know, that's an uncomfortable place to be in. Because you just feel, you know, I remember being questioned a couple times about what is it that I do, and I say, oh, I don't know. I'm just kind of trying to discover and figure it out. And the first response that person gave me was, how do you not know?
Yeah.
Like this concept, like we just wake up in the morning and we just know what it, you know. And I think that's the difference between people who are following their heart and their own call. You don't have the control. You're walking in the unknown. You're walking in that void, and you don't know where you're going to go to next because you're not in control. You're being led. Versus the people that wake up in the morning and they've got that to-do list and they've got the 10-year plan, which is what you're taught you're supposed to do. And you're going to go out there and make it happen so that you can control the results. Well, yeah, you may know kind of where you're going, but but do you know if that place that you're going is going to be satisfying or not? Or are you trying to do the 10-year plan and the checklist because you want to prove yourself to this person over here or to this ghost of your past? Or do you feel insecure? And that's the real reason that you're motivated to do this.
Right.
One makes you feel in control, but maybe not happy and not fulfilled. The other one here makes you feel like you have no control and you feel a little insecure. But man, every time you follow that call, do you feel fulfilled? Do you feel like you're on purpose? You feel like you're doing something with your life? You're not just running through the motions. You know, and I think a lot of people feel like they're multi-passionate and they don't want to give themselves the space to explore because they want to know where it's going to go to next. And I think we both have been on that path, and we're still both on that path of just following the ideas that come to you.
I think a lot of it has to do with validation too. And it's and I you know was just having this conversation with someone, and I think I feel like I've been talking about it a lot, so I'm just going to talk about it again.
Go for it. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah. And well, and Anna's like, she keeps reminding me. So it's like, okay. So, I think the whole thing is about validation. We often look for, when we're doing something that we feel good about, or just maybe even okay at work or life, whatever, the common string that I think people can get iffy about or have to be careful about is needing to be validated. Yeah. When it's okay to have someone validate you and their own volition, right? That feels good. And we all know that feeling. We like that feeling. It's when it starts to get where you're dependent on it, that starts to get really iffy. So women with relationships with men, right, that they're constantly seeking that validation. At work, when you're seeking to get a promotion, or you're doing a bunch of projects, or you're keeping really, really busy. And even with our friends, right, we want to be cool, we want to take these pictures, we want to be together, we want to show the world that we're doing all of these things, and then even with social media, you want to post them so that people like them, and then you become validated. But all of that feels good on its own volition when it's done in its own way. Where I've been talking a lot about is like self-validation, because when you self-validate, when you know who you are and you know what you can do and you feel good about what you're doing, all of those extra likes are extra. They're good.
They're the icing on the cake.
It does, yeah. And I tell people, I like me. Your like is extra. I'm really trying to like me, though. Like, I'm not just on a surface level like me. I'm like really trying to love me for who I am. So your like is extra. I'll take your like. I want it. It makes me feel good. It only confirms that I'm walking the path that I need to. But I don't need it to continue to walk my path, if you know what I mean. So it's like people really need to do the work to validate themselves, to have that. And I hate the word, I don't hate it. That's a strong word. I don't really care for the word self-love, because it's been spread over everything these days, from manicures to getting your hair done to just taking vacation. Like, all of that is a subset of the real issue, is loving who you are. And the problem is, a lot of people don't know who they are. Yeah. And when they're starting these things, and they start projects based on what they think people want to see, they open themselves up to wanting to be validated for that. Right. And then ultimately they get discouraged or disheartened because people don't validate them in the way that they think that they should. But you start that because you feel like that's what you need to do, because you've spent so much time with yourself, girl. If I'm going to go take a class on crystals, I'm going to do that because that is what this soul is telling me to do. Yeah. And so I think the overarching, like, real issue why people don't start, why they get afraid, why they back out of beginnings, why they don't want to be seen as imperfect, is because they haven't taken the time to validate themselves. They're setting up a system where other people have to do it for them. And then they're kind of just setting themselves up for failure. Now, you can get past that, right? In the journey to self-discovery, we get past it. But if that's where you start, it's a rocky road, and it's circular. You just keep running in these circles. So now I failed here, I'm going to do something else because I feel like somebody's going to validate me, but I haven't done the work to validate myself. Yeah. And when you validate yourself, when you love yourself, when you do something for you and then continuously do things that make you feel good, you're satisfied. You're not seeking validation. Now you're looking for other people to grow. You're looking to other people to help elevate you, and you're looking for other people that you can elevate because you're good here. And then you're like, okay, so I'm good with me. Now I see this girl over there. When she asks for my help, I'm in the clarity myself. I'm going to go and help her grow so she can feel this thing too. But it's tough to do when people are just constantly, there's pressure. It's a lot of pressure to do.
Too much really pressure. Really fast. Yeah. A lot of that self-love that everybody talks about, I don't know if they recognize what you're talking about, loving yourself. I see it as a deeper level. The self that I see is that soul within you that's calling. Yeah. And learning to love that soul, to answer what it's calling for you to do, even though what it may call you to do may be scary as hell. Right. Or that thing that is calling you to do, you know, deep in yourself, this is what you're meant to do. But then if you talk to somebody on the outside, they go, what the heck are you doing? No, you can't do that because everybody else oh wait, you're going to fail at this. I've had moments in my life where my soul has called me to do something, and then I told other people, man, did I have to stand in that fire? I had to stand in that fire of, no, this is what I want in my heart and soul, and I'm going to do it. And yes, I'm going to hear everything that you guys are saying. You're going to tell me all of your fears. And still, at the end of the day, I have to have the faith and to walk in this path. And so walking this path, if you want to be fulfilled in your life, you have to follow your soul's call. You have to have the courage to do so, but you also have to have the courage to do so in spite of everything else going on the outside.
Yes.
That's that self-love. And when you can do that continuously, let's say you are creating whatever work it is, whatever way that you're expressing it, you can create from that place and only follow that place. I'm exactly with you on that. Validation doesn't matter.
Right.
But if we get into our heads about it, validation matters. When we're not so sure about ourselves and we're feeling insecure, validation matters because we just want, this is new to us. We're not sure. We've been walking this path a long time without any like, hey, God, are you going to tell me what I need to do next? Can I get a sign about this? If you're not getting any of that, you're going to look on the outside and say, is what I'm doing okay? It's normal. When you're a kid, you definitely feel that same way. You feel like if you do something that you can feel is just a little bit out of the norm, you look around and go, is that okay? Is that acceptable? And if you've never had anybody in your life say that's okay and that's acceptable, then that's where some of that insecurity comes from. You know,
that's
exactly.
That's exactly right. Just right.
Yeah. So sometimes it helps to have support, I think, in your life with people who will lift you up and help you. But I think also, there was something else that you were talking about, feeling like you need, if somebody else comes to you and looks for advice and you feel like you need to help them. Sometimes I think a lot of us want to do work that's meaningful and we equate that to making a difference in the world and making a difference in the lives of others. And I think that that's a great thing to do. But I think it first starts off with going back further to something else you said, which is we have to learn the lesson first.
Right.
We can't really, I was just thinking about this earlier today, it's not really our place to necessarily help others in the sense of telling people what to do, because there's no possible way for us to know what that person necessarily needs. The universe knows that for sure. All that you can do when you're really trying to help somebody is to really embody who you really are. And allow that to transform you. You can then be an expression of that to other people around you. And that's a way of liberating other people. If people want to have help in figuring out how to tap into it themselves, well, then maybe you can help them with that. But I think it's all an individual journey, personally.
Yes, it's kind of a slippery slope. And so like, I know that, you know, I know we didn't really talk too much about like mediumship or like anything like that, and I know that's not what we're talking about.
No, you can talk. You know what? We have like a specific topic of what I want to talk about. So whatever comes up, I feel like if it comes up, then I feel like maybe somebody needs to hear it. Okay. Let's not censor ourselves. Let's go for it.
So for people who don't know, I'm a medium, and I totally get a lot of information sometimes, and an empath, and just like all these really great things. And in that learning and sort of embracing that gift, which is like a portion of what I'm doing with my blog, and actually really opening up when we're talking about beginnings. Like I've been doing that for a while, but I haven't told anybody. So I'm actually just starting to tell people. So that's a new thing for me. So I'm exploring all of these emotions, but but also on that scope, I've sort of like had all of these really cool things revealed to me, and like hearing all these really great messages and everything that's happening with the alignment in me. But what I wanted to go back and say was that, you know, angels and spirit guides and things like that, they are absolutely here, and they've always told me you can make yourself available. Something in their spirit will ask them to help. That will always happen. Angels and spirit guides, they don't tell us how to do things. They empower us to make the decision. So a lot of times if I'm doing a reading, or I've been practicing and doing like reading my cards or my oracle cards, or just listening to what the guides have to say, a lot of times they'll ask a question. And the idea around that is really so that you have the idea. It's your choice. It's your decision. So we're always going to learn the lesson. And they've told me this so many times. You're going to learn the lesson. You've already decided that you're going to do that. In your life, in your spirit, you will become elevated. You have lessons that you need to learn. You're going to learn them. Okay. So how you get there is kind of up to you.
Yeah.
So when we make a decision to do something, so towards that lesson, we're either going to take this road or we're going to take this road, but we're going to get there. Yeah. And so the empowerment comes from when you're helping someone, or the way I probably should have said that was to be available and say, okay, this person needs the help and the encouragement. I'm going to give them love. I'm going to send them love. And when their soul feels right, they can come to me, and then you're making yourself available. But yeah, you have got to do the work first. So it really is, even from the heavens down, you know, God and the source of everything good, and angels and spirit guides and all these really cool things that I've become really privy to. The ultimate being, the finest and most common thread is love and empowerment, and then elevation. Because when we're in this spirit, in this body, and our minds are aligning, and we're learning the lessons that we do, and we connect to other humans and help them on their journey to grow, ultimately we are experiencing this life so that we can learn and bring those things into the next, or where you need to, or just continue on that journey. So I think sometimes we forget that this little tiny piece of where we are now is just a tiny little speck of sand in all of these grand scheme, like, things that are going on and need to be done. So not just in our lives, in our spirits, but in all of those people around us. So it's a really, really, really interesting lesson to learn on beginnings and where you start and who you are, because collectively, right, pieces of sand, they make like this huge, beautiful beach, right? They help us see things, they come together, they form, like, there's just so many great things that combined we can do together. So it's like, when you pull back from that, sometimes you have to think about it, because I thought about this too. When I pull back my gift, I'm holding my piece of that from the grand scheme of things. I might be delaying the lesson for someone else.
Yeah.
I haven't done the work and I haven't started. So that person, right, may not be learning their lesson on time. It's going to take them longer. It all has a ripple effect.
Oh yeah, we're all in this together.
All in it together. And yeah. So connected, like a spider's web. Just, there's so many things that are connected in the most beautiful, wonderful way. But it's really, really, really interesting to see all of those things revealed and how they kind of work together. I've been tired, let me just tell you.
It is, yeah, going on this path is a tiring thing. It's really easy to stay on that conveyor belt, that conveyor belt of life that just says you do this, you do this, you do this. But when you step away from that, and I think a lot of us, we feel the call that we want to do something. Now, mediumship, that's not something that we started talking about in this episode, but it doesn't really matter what it is that you do. You could be a singer, you could be a writer, you could be a yoga teacher, you could be an executive. It doesn't really matter. You could be creating a business in another country. It does not matter what it is that you're doing. The path to becoming who you're meant to become is all the same. Now, for you, it took you a long time to explore and figure out this thing that you're talking about. But all these different things that you're going and doing, like Reiki or creating the t-shirts, when you're creating that blog post, all these different things are leading you to become more and more of yourself. But also, in the act of doing all of these things, there's an essence to each one of these things that is really your whole, your whole message in life. All of them hold a theme. So for me, it doesn't matter what I do in my work. It's all about it. At least right now, it's all about showing people that they can be whoever they want to be, and you do not have to be on the conveyor belt of your life. You do not have to do things the way everybody else does them. You can do them through your own heart's call. So that's in everything that I do and in everything that I have done. I've come to learn that that's my message. That's my theme. And you have your theme.
Well, you do it really well, Stefanie, because like
you.
I was thinking about the fact that, so I have to actually do an Instagram video after this, which is really funny that we're
we're all together. We didn't even talk about this beforehand. It just, see how these little puzzle pieces come together?
Yes. Well, I have to pull, and it's funny because, okay, so I've been writing this blog post, and I can't write it down. I just have the hardest time. So I was like, well, since I am like interviewing with Stefanie, I'm just gonna like do my thing on a post, Instagram video. But where you come in is actually about something that and the guides have been kind of like really, really pushing me to do, and it's talking about like, what does your heart say? And you asked me that like the first time that we talked, and so I was like, oh my God, what does my heart say? I don't know. What does she say? What does she say?
Yeah.
But this was before I started my mediumship, like mentorship with my mentor, and practicing my readings and getting my new cards and like learning about crystals and like writing my blogs, and then just, you know, this whole thing. And there's other things that I'll tell you later on that are really cool. But in that way, you're really good at that because you point blank asked me, like, what does your heart say? So that's kind of the beginning of it. And then it sort of resonated with me as I was going through those things. And
you mean since we've last talked?
Yes.
Yeah.
And since I've like learned all these things, you know, and there's so many things I can't even tell you. It's like ridiculous. And when I tell you, the guides confirmed it, like my mentor confirmed it, the angels came down and were like, well, what does Tawn's heart say? Like, and I'm like, okay.
You're walking down the street and you're seeing a heart somewhere.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, first it was Stefanie, and then it was Melissa. It was just, it's crazy. But you know, you're good at that because I was like, wait a second. Okay. Wait a second, you know, and you contacted me to like really kind of talk to me. I thought you needed my help on something, and here you are giving me this, you know, piece of, I don't even want to call it advice. I don't even think it's like one of those things where you're like, you know, it wasn't like that. It was just like you point blank asked me, like, Tawn, well, what does your heart say? And it's such a critical thing to know and to understand and to be mindful of always. It never goes away.
Always.
And so just thank you for that, first of all, because it's one of those things that's resonated. But I want to encourage you too to just continue to do that, because we get into some spaces where we feel like, I don't know if you do this, or I know I do it. Sometimes I feel like someone would know more than me.
Yeah.
And I feel like humbled when they would even do something, you know what I mean? And so I encourage you to, even though you reached out to me and would think, even if it was even for a second, and I don't even know if you thought this, that you were just happy that I would even talk to you, right? Let's take that for example. Don't ever do that to yourself, because you were actually the one that ended up helping me. And so anytime I do that with my mentor, I did the same thing with her when I went through my mediumship mentor thing with her. I was like, you're spending so much time with me. Oh my God, like, thank you so much. And she was like, Tawn, you don't understand. I've learned so much just from what the angels told me to tell you that you're about to do. And you need to go do. And the homework that you're doing has actually blessed me, because it's told me that I need to do that too.
We're all
and it's shown me. So, you know what I mean? It's everybody's equal. Nobody's better than you, and you're not better than anybody else. I tell my girls that all the time. So thank you for that, because I'm about to do an Instagram blog thing that might actually help other people based on something you told me. So good for you.
Thank you.
Saying it, you know?
Thank you for saying that. You know, I think we underestimate our value. I think we also, when we're measuring ourselves up against this imaginary, I want to say standard, but that's probably not the word. When we're measuring ourselves up against what we think I don't know what's the word I'm looking for.
No, I get compared.
We have an idea how we think it should look.
Right.
And when we're measuring ourselves up against that, and we don't feel like we're there, we have a tendency to undervalue
Yeah.
what we have to say and do. But sometimes it's just maybe being in the grocery store and saying hi to somebody behind you in the grocery store, and you underestimate, you think it's just a hi, but maybe that person hasn't hasn't had a smile from anyone, let alone anybody looking at them the last week. You don't know what somebody else is going through. And even though let's just say, even though we're just starting, it doesn't mean that we're not leaving breadcrumbs for the people behind us.
Right.
Yeah, so as I'm learning things, I'm putting it out there on my blog or on my Instagram or whatever I'm doing. And as I continue to grow in this path, I'm going to keep leaving breadcrumbs for the people behind me.
Yep.
And that's our legacy, essentially.
Yep.
So thank you for saying that. And, and thank you for doing the work that you're doing as well. Because even in this conversation, I'm picking up things and learning things and hearing things that that is validating things that I need to be doing in my life, or messages and signs that I've heard for the last week. So, and vice versa. And I say that anybody else listening to this may also get the same thing.
Yes.
But had we not started and had that courage to go down this path, then people out there probably wouldn't hear it. So it's all about divine timing. We're all together in this.
Yes.
So, well, you know what? I want to say thank you on that note for being here today, Tawn. I really appreciate it. Tell everybody what your website is one more time and where they can reach you if they're interested, and what it is that you do and how you can help them.
Okay. I don't like talking about
Okay. Hold on. Before we even do this, let's take another step back before we end this, because I think it's really important we talk about this. Tawn has to own who she is right now.
Oh gosh.
She has to, one of the biggest things, because you said you just now recently just said that you hadn't told anybody that you're being a medium. That's something new that you said, right? Yes. In order to own it, we have to claim it, right? Yeah. Because we can easily sit in that gray line of not having one foot in the door in one side and one foot in the door on the other side. And I have a friend named Anne who constantly is reminding me about that. She's always like, you got one foot here and one foot here. You got to choose. You can't straddle that line. So in order for you to take the next step on your path, you have to own where you are now. Then that could change in the future, and that's completely okay. But you first have to own it now. So
you're right. You
own it.
I've been doing so good.
You're doing great here. You're doing great, period.
I've been doing better, but it's like, oh man, I stopped saying I think
that was something that you've been doing well.
I did. I stopped doing that, and I did start in owning it. So okay, I will do it. Let me start over.
Let's start over.
Okay, so I'll start with what I do. So I am a teacher, not an elementary school teacher. So maybe that was not the way to start that, but that's okay.
You're good.
So I am a medium. I am a empath. And I coach people, I guess, on that right now, my biggest focus is self-deprecating dialogue. So I write, I'm a public speaker, and I do workshops. And that's basically who I am. That's what I do. I'm here to help people heal and then find the ways that they can do that through spiritual guidance and just doing the work, tangibly writing out things and helping them heal. So that is what I do, and that's who I am. My website is www.fromtawnwithlove.com. It's the same for my Instagram, and really any way that you can find me. It's
exactly.
Just how it is, and that's how you can reach me. So on the site, it's cool. My blog posts are on there. My contact information is on there for workshops, mentorships, and readings too. I do readings, and I have been doing that. So it's been fun.
The other thing that Tawn does that she's not mentioning is what I want to say is really good, and this is the thing that she started off with at the beginning of her Instagram, was learning how to express herself physically. She did a lot for naturally curly hair. She really helped women embrace their naturally curly hair. She helped people to embrace who they really are on the outside by just style, through advice, through mentorship. So it's not just that she helps you, I want to say she taps into using these techniques through public speaking and all this is the medium that she uses to help you get through. But at the end of the day, she helps you become more and more of who you really are. That's what I feel like she does.
Yes, thank you for adding that so eloquently. I always try to what my Instagram like profile thing says. And I think it says, I help others meet, see, manifest, and affirm their inner badassery. Which
thank
is
you.
Kind of
See, but that's where you have to own that. You have to own that, your own inner badassery.
Yeah.
Right? And you're doing that well.
So
you are doing great. You're doing great. You're doing great. And that's,
the ad hoc, hey, Tawn, what do you do? And I'm like, so there's so many things.
See, and this is the process of becoming. This is what I love about the series that I'm doing is the fact that, damn it, we all are on this process. And how many people out there can relate to the fact that they don't know how to explain what they do yet? And that's okay. That's okay. I know that in the business world, in the corporate world, they go, you have to have that elevator pitch. You have to, in 3 seconds or less, explain what it is that you do. But sometimes you just don't know yet because you're still exploring it. And that's totally okay. And that's exactly what I do in my work. And I do that messy process. I talk about it on voiceofdream.com. You can find me there. Stefanie L. Garcia on Instagram.com or Instagram. And it's okay. Just embrace those imperfections, right?
I didn't think there was anything wrong with that. I thought it was great.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But again, see, we feel like it's not because we're still walking on that, that insecure ground.
Stefanie, I
right?
spelled out www. Okay?
We're good. See?
Like people didn't know that.
Right.
I don't care. Whatever. It is what it is.
It is what it is. Yeah, we hope everybody, hopefully everybody can get something from this episode. I'm excited again. Like I said, so thrilled to be doing this series. Thank you so much, Tawn, for being the very first person on this series for this very first episode. And thank you all who are watching this. I hope you received something from this. And I will see you next time. Bye.